Hello and welcome to Cosmic Compass, the leading astrocartography and locational astrology podcast where we talk all things location and astrology. And today I'm so excited to have on the show my dear student and also now my assistant teacher, part of Team HW over in my courses, Amanda Voss. Amanda is an astrocartographer and locational astrology specialist, and I'm so excited to have Amanda on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I feel like it's been a long time coming.
I know
Yeah.
you've been in the course when I first launched it in April 2023, and you are my best student. You've been the most active in the Facebook groups, and me and you have established a relationship and a friendship. And I always tell everyone Amanda is the most thorough, most like you look at everything. And that's why I hired you as part of my team to be, assistant teacher in my courses, because you're so good at looking at everything, the charts, the parents, the maps. You're incredible at what you do. And I'm so excited to have you and on the show and talk about your story.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm excited to share it.
Ah, tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are. How did you get to this point now of doing locational astrology?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been something I've been pursuing my whole life. I didn't like discover this when I was little or anything, but I'm a triple earth sign. So I've always really connected with the importance of like place and land, like the sacredness of that. And it's literally been one of the most important things to me. It's a driving factor. Was really on my mind even, probably when I was like 12 years old or maybe even younger. I always wanted to travel. I always wanted to live abroad. I did both of those things from the time I graduated college, and I really got like a chance to like experience a lot of different parts of the world. I always wanted to kind of embed myself in the communities, though. I didn't just like want to travel, and then I kind of used that as a base for all my little trips. And then I've got both of my nodes in the third and the ninth house, so that can sometimes be like a signifier for this type of life. But honestly, it wasn't until like accidentally moving 10 miles to probably the biggest challenge in my chart, which is like my Saturn ascendant, and I have like multiple lines. We kind of call this like that vortex kind of energy. But yeah, there was like five planetary cosmic influences there, three of them challenging, and really just started to see a lot of things in my life like deconstruct. I'll put it that way, around me over time for a very long time. And it was really just trying to get to the root cause of what's going on here. And I was trying every spiritual tradition, every teacher, and I couldn't figure it out. And at some point, um, I heard about this, and I can't even tie it to a specific moment or someone that mentioned it. It was just around me, and I was aware of it. I started searching. This isn't even like, I don't know, like 2020, 2021. And I didn't see that many results even like on the first page. And I know that you were one of them. So I knew early on that like you had to be my teacher, even though you weren't even speaking at that point about like doing a course. I'm like, this like literally has to be the person. I think a couple years before that time, I was getting really obsessed with like ley lines. I found this site like Vortex Hunter where you can like look up by GPS, like little micro vortexes. I discovered one by accident in LA. And for years, I just felt like really, like really weird when I was there, like psychedelic weird. And I was like, what is this? And I just Googled it for years because there was no chat GBT or whatever. And I realized at some point I Googled it, and there was an old LA Times article where this guy used to do these like UFO tours. So it's this botanical garden park in La Cañada Flint Ridge, which is in LA County, and it's a very special place for me. And then after I found that article, I saw, oh, there's like some like kind of military presence, like minor, like in the hills, like right above the park. I'm like, where you could have all those things converge, like there's something there. So it would just be like stuff like that. I was part of like a yoga community for a really long time in LA, and the teacher would be talking about geomancy. I My friend gave me these cards yesterday that are they're like tarot cards, but they're in Spanish, and they're just for Capricorn, so they're like oracle cards. And literally, the one I pulled yesterday was about geomancy. I mean, yeah, it was just like all around me. So it just like kind of like came to me. And I would never even have left Los Angeles. I actually really liked it. If I hadn't realized and hadn't then gone into this like study. And that's what has eventually caused me to finally like move or at least distance myself from my more challenging influences.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating how, you hear the idea all the time. People will say, I'm home wherever my heart is. Or like people will say, it doesn't matter where I am, I can find home within myself. And it's like, yes, that's true spiritually, but also location matters. and where you live matters and your
Hmm.
environment. And your energy shifts depending on where you are in the world. And you've got so much on the
Hmm.
West Coast, like moon setting on the descendant,
Yeah.
Saturn rising, Pluto IC, Mercury descendant, Jupiter MC. And we got to talk about this Jupiter moon crossing over in San Francisco and Berkeley. We'll talk about that a little later, but like what a powerful no, it's I'm sorry, it's Jupiter and Mercury, yeah, crossing over in San Francisco. We got to talk about that at some
Yeah.
point. But location really matters. And um so you recently, I want to go into a lot of like different places you've been to and places you've been drawn to, your favorite places that you've been that you like, and
Hmm.
what astrocartography lines are there. But I'm really curious because you have so many lines on the West Coast. Does it feel like a lot? And when you went recently to Arizona, in Tucson, did that shift? Did the sense of intensity or energy lessen when you were further away from the lines? Did you notice anything energetically?
Yes, I mean that was definitely like a good decision to kind of like extricate me out of that out of that situation there. You know, sometimes it just has to get to such a point that like there's a reason why it's getting to such a point is because you are supposed to move. And I'm so happy that I went through that as an astrologer, so I actually like have that experience. Like, yes, Saturn still in the first house, but 6 degrees as opposed to what was it, like 1 degree in LA is like a marked difference. I felt like I could work with that Saturn a little bit more, yeah, like intentionally, but it's still very difficult even at 6 degrees.
In Arizona and Tucson, you have a Mars Neptune parent. And for any of you who are new to astrocartography, parents are latitude crossings. They're lines that go at a latitude. And so you've got a Mars Neptune pretty close to Tucson, right?
Yeah, I think it was about 15 miles away. And I think it's really hard to say in my case. And this is something that I just kind of like tapped into really recently, like even a couple of weeks ago, or even in the last week. And I'm like, I should have like known that as an astrologer, but I'm so Virgo that I'm always like micro on the details. And I was like, all those years, even before astrology, where I was like, why do I feel so stuck? Why is nothing moving? Why am I so stagnant? Because it's like I have, because of like the whole science, like in the birth chart, that's all mutable. And then it's like, yeah, Leo in the first. So it's like all like fixed, right? So, but I think the way that you described like the Neptune Mars parent and the the course is like the tractor and like and like the water, like, yeah, like trying to drive through mud or like whatever that is. I felt like I felt that more strongly at the beginning. So yeah, maybe there's like some more, yeah, like integration of that like Tucson version of that chart. And I just kind of like noticed like in the beginning of the year, I just felt more like I was in this like Mars energy, right? Like I didn't care anymore and I wasn't going to hold myself back anymore. I had some like good like yeah, some good ZR, periods in the beginning of the year that involves my Mars and my night chart. So, yeah, since then I just felt like I felt it less and that wasn't an issue anymore. So don't want people to be scared of that one because I think some people are. It's definitely not like being on something that's going to involve like well, like if it was like a Saturn and a Mars, for example, it's
Yeah.
not like that. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So,
totally. Yeah, Mars,
yeah.
Saturn, I find people tend to describe it as more challenging.
Yeah.
Moon and Chiron is another one. I would say the top ones that people consistently talk about are like Moon, Chiron, Mars, Saturn. Even Mars Pluto, it can actually be quite nice for some people. It
Hmm.
really depends on your personality. I find that
Yeah.
like go-getters and like people who are really ambitious, they love the Mars Pluto. And Mars Neptune can also be so creatively motivating too. Like I know a lot of like dancers or musicians or creative types can actually thrive on that pairing. So there's always a flip side, always a positive to every planet,
Yes.
and zodiac sign. I think that's such a good point to like always mention because, people still fear Pluto and people still fear Mars. And it's like these planets
Mhm.
have good sides too, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the way that I talk about even like, something like an opposition with my clients. And this might be coming from like my herbal medicine background, but it's literally like what like the medicine that you need is actually on the other side of the chart. It's not this thing that's like trying like out to get you. Yeah, or if you think about, well, actually, everyone's, a lot, not everyone, but a lot of people is like looking for like the romantic partner, right? So where's the seventh house in relation to the first house? So it's like it's what you're looking for in the other person. Is that what you don't have? So yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh,
Mhm.
so tell me a bit more about you getting more into astrocartography. Was that on a Jupiter Mercury pairing that you tapped more into astrology and kind of the more technical field of the esoteric arts, the more detailed kind of spiritual modality?
I think actually like I was so focused on my chart in LA, I don't remember like all the params there.
Oh, you
But
have a
yeah,
Pluto Mercury in LA.
that's the one that I'm like, that totally makes sense. Because like I was just like, before all this astrology stuff, I really wanted to kind of like do this like creativity coaching, like helping people through creative blocks, which again sort of like makes sense, me kind of like embodying all that stagnant energy. So that was kind of like on my mind. And then I was really just getting into, I don't know who I like learned this from or who the teachers were, what the books were, but it was just like moving through all that like perfectionist stuff, like really, yeah, letting go of that. And obviously that's like really, I mean, with like a Virgo rising natal chart and like being on a Mercury Pluto, like that was very, very, yeah, very challenging. Some of that though has been very helpful in my like long and storied career as like a designer, right? So yeah, that's like the other side of it. Yeah,
Tell me
like
more about your work in design. And you now blend astrology and web design now, right? Is that something going
yeah,
on? Yeah.
I do that. And then, yeah, really like a lot of my relocation practice is focused on like the business astrology. One thing that really clicked for me came out of Anywhere Office, just like a little immersion in there. But just like when you're using, again, like the whole signs, like those, the element that ends up being in like the career, like the wealth houses. Um, that's huge, right? So
Oh,
people
yeah.
might be wondering why an old, like in example, my case, but like why an old career or like, yeah, something that you've done before isn't like working and like quite, yeah, yeah, the same way. So yeah, I feel like the astro branding work, like we call it, is like a natural offshoot of anyone that wants to do, yeah, like the business astrology work. Maybe they don't have a team, maybe they don't have a design or access to it. So yeah, it's really coming out of that and it's really like unlocking the story, right? It's like allowing like your brand to sort of like speak through the chart,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That
Totally.
right. Yeah. And you know what? Like not so long ago, I actually, I was just like in Google Images or something, like just I needed to reference like the color psychology wheel, which I was always very interested in. I'm like, there's actually a lot of overlaps between that and like the chart, right? Like the energetics of the chart. So like how some of those color families sort of line up with the signs. Like maybe if we're like thinking about like, the Aries sort of like calendrical sort of, yeah, chart. But
Yeah.
yeah, really. So it's like, do you have a stellium and a lot of fire signs? That's going to inform how we're going to approach a color palette. Where's like the Mercury and what's that influencing? So how that vibe of messaging sort of like comes through. We can go a lot of places with that, right? Yeah. So that's one thing I'm really working on this year. I've started it a little bit, but the idea is to really build out like a template, not like a website template that people can use, not just for like the four elements, but then within each of those elements, we can customize them to, yeah, actually like each of the signs. And then I got a lot out of like in our quarterly directory call. So me as a designer, I do website audits for clients all the time, but it's really cool like people hearing people, especially not from a design or tech background, and hearing like seeing what they're doing and hearing more about what they need, because that's really informed like this whole suite of tools that I'm kind of developing to kind of, yeah, doesn't have to be an astrologer. You could be like a spiritual coach, a service provider, and like everything that you need to sort of like run your business so that you can really just like stay focused on what you do best. So yeah, that's helped with a lot of that. So yeah, if you are part of that or thinking about joining the directory, you never know like what unexpected things are going to really get out of that. Yeah, even more than just like, yeah, connecting with everyone. So
Oh, I know. And it's amazing to just hear the stories about how like if you get one client, let's say you're an astrologer, you're on a directory, or just you're doing your work and one person could tell five friends about you or could tell their
yeah,
sister and their cousin and then those people tell their friend and it can spread. Word of mouth is so magical and I always say it's the best advertising is word of mouth referrals.
mhm,
And also for fellow astrologers listening, you got to ask
yeah,
for referrals. A lot of people are too shy to ask their clients for testimonials, but
mhm.
they don't even think, like most people don't even think to give a testimonial unless you ask them. So definitely reach out, fellow astrologers. But yeah, the design background for you, I mean, you've got Libra in the second house of money, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So the second house being, how do you make money? How do you spend? What's your relationship to money, to budgeting, spending, all of it? I know. And for me, when I really leaned into my birth chart and I started using my second house is in Sagittarius, when I started teaching and talking about
mhm.
travel, that's literally when my income streams grew. And then same
Yeah,
with branding, thinking about branding, when I really leaned into the Leo MC, I was
mhm.
like, let's just go all in with Leo energy and see what
Right, yeah.
happens. And it just took
Mhm,
off. Whereas
mhm.
before, when I had more muted colors, I was doing more like grays, minimalism, light blues. It just didn't
Yeah.
resonate. And also, it didn't feel like me.
Yeah. And I know like a lot of business astrologers I follow, they tend to just like lean really heavily, like still like into the birth chart for the like the business and the branding piece. I kind of like to use both. What I mean by that is, yeah, like pulling like an event chart, for like the moment that you like, started a business, or it could be like buying your domain name, or yeah, like the seed of the idea, right? And we can use this like if you're running like events and stuff too, right? Like there's all sorts of ways. But this sort of like paired with like the relocation astrology for me is when it got really interesting, because when I moved from New York, which is basically my birth chart, um, because I grew up in the Midwest, and then I went, to like ever since I went to, LA back to, yeah, California, and I was in that chart that moved Virgo to my second. I was like been obsessed with making templates for people, and that was like never gone away since. So, yeah, that has been like a whole, yeah, like yeah, journey as well, just like my design studio. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's
And
why I like using, yeah, yeah.
it's brilliant because I think a lot of astrologers and just business owners, we've got to focus on the research, on the client work, on teaching, and it's like we can't think about all these other things that we need to run successful businesses, like systems and templates
Mhm.
and websites and all of these things. And so it's so helpful that you're making these templates for people
Yeah.
in whatever field they're in spiritual industries. I just think that's amazing that you're doing that. So tell us a little bit about some of your favorite places that you've ever been to, and or just any magical stories you've had with your astrocartography journey.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some like interesting ones with kind of this like micro shift that I've made over the last week and a half. And this is just like moving between two relocated charts. So yes, the San Francisco Bay Area always has like a special place in my heart, but like for years I didn't think I would ever come back here. And it didn't even like it started getting like really like loud starting at the beginning of the year probably as that, Jupiter is like making that, sort of transition into my first house. Yeah, over
Yeah.
here. Yeah. And then just coming from that very challenged vortex for so many years. We talk about some of the courses like, oh, it can take a while to kind of, yeah, imbibe that, that new relocated chart. So that was a question I had for our community was like, have you experienced this before? Like, have you gone back to somewhere that you like, is that something that is also going to take a long time? Are you just going to like, you're obviously going to have different like transits and different chapters of life that are going to be sort of, unfolding at different times, even on a practical level outside of the astrology. But I was surprised. I felt it like immediately things started just like happening, like in the airport, remote activation.
Tell us
All of
about that. What remote
that.
activation?
Well, okay, so when I left Tucson, I was going to LA for a few days to hat sit for a friend of mine, but my flight, I had a layover in Denver first on my way out there. And then I do a little medical astrology too. So I just felt that like all these issues with like my bones in LA, especially like the last few years there, like some bone density stuff or just like, pain or things like that. I
And
was
you have Saturn rising there, right?
sorry.
Or
Yeah, yeah. Yes, Saturn rising 1 degree in Leo.
wow.
Uh, yeah, that has like an opposition, like 180-degree opposition
Mhm.
with my Mercury.
Yes.
Um, yeah, which is yeah, I think it's like 29. It's like, yeah, it's like right on the cusp between like the sixth and the seventh house. So we could say that that's still like affecting those things. And then so sometimes I just like, I will be sitting, not even for a long time, or laying in bed, or like, yeah, I could feel it in my hip or like my tailbone if I'm sitting. And then like the flight had ended to Denver. And I was just noticed that I hadn't noticed anything, that I hadn't felt that. So that was like the difference of going from 6 degrees. So that's like a 5 degree difference to like 16 degrees. So like 15 degrees from that ascendant where I no longer felt it.
Wow.
Um, that was the thing. Other thing is like we sometimes talk about like, oh, if you're not living close to any lines that unsupportive or like supportive, challenging or supportive, that there should be like an element of that doesn't resonate because there's like nothing there to, help you grow or challenge you like in any way.
Yeah.
Um, and the literal words, I got off the plane and I don't know if you've ever like studied or know anything about Ayurveda, but I just felt like everyone looked like an air sign to me in the airport. And there was just like a fast moving pace, exciting. So I was now 2 degrees from my Uranus when I think it's 6 in Tucson. And the
Wow.
words that came to my mind immediately was like, I'm like walking into an electrical current. Like this is literally, so we think we don't have to move that far to like have things start to shift. And this isn't even taking me to my better relocated chart. This is just as far as possible. So out of that like 8 degree difference we talk about with like the planets
Hmm.
kind of at angles.
Yeah.
Um, that was really, yeah, that was really cool. And I just had like, I feel seen. Like this is like
Yes.
and sun was getting very close to moving and becoming more visible. I was a few days away. This is a few days away remote activation. So a few days away from having that, that sun and moon, which are both in Capricorn for me in my sixth house, health house ruled by malefic, like just like coming, and into the seventh.
Wow.
And there's this, since I've been here in Northern California on my best ever relocated chart, probably on the west, yeah, part of the country,
Mhm.
or we can say North America too, because we work longitudinally. Yeah, it's just been like nonstop kind of like magic. There's been a lot of stuff about food, right? So I'm using the Trusted House Sitters app to kind of like fund this, journey like completely. And you don't get paid for these things. It's just like an accommodation exchange, which is very fair. But it
Yes.
was like, oh, have all the food in my house. Here's like $150 to go eat at Millennium, which is this very like high end, like I don't know if it's like a Michelin star, but it's like the best vegan restaurant like in probably parts of the country, but like definitely here. Yeah, like $150 for that from my host. And just feeling like more taken care of and feel more safe. So like the thing is like the things that you had going on before, it's not that they aren't going on. They are still there, but we talk a lot about like, oh, it's that filter, right? And we
Yes,
know it's like
exactly.
with manifesting, right? Like the more you put your attention on certain
Yeah,
things, like, that's what the experience is too. So that's reflected back and in the chart. So.
totally. Oh my gosh, yeah. And even just in my own experience recently, I just touched down in Copenhagen yesterday, and Saturn relocated to my 12th house and got
Mhm.
out of my first. And
Yeah.
it's so much less Saturnian here. And I felt it
Mhm.
immediately.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
shift of like Saturn more in the background
Yeah.
rather than front and center in my life all the time, you know? And it's now for me, Saturn isn't as difficult for me.
Yeah.
Mars tends to be more challenging for me. So, for any of you guys listening that are new to astrology, you have a malefic planet, your main malefic, and it's based on if you have a day chart or a night chart, and also your aspects. And we go really deep on this in the relocation astrology course. But so with you have your Saturn, you have your Mercury line all in California. Tell us a
Hmm.
little bit about this special intersection that you have
Mm.
with, is it Jupiter and Mercury in San Francisco? Is that where that parent is created?
Yes. So, yeah, and it was just like being not in this energy for so long and just like immediately feeling the contrast, like you were just talking about. I do also want to say people get like scared about Saturn in the second house, for example, and finances has been a huge challenging, issue for me for the last few years. And I've lived here before, and I didn't have those problems, and it is been the opposite of that since I've been here, right? And like my rising is 29 degrees Cancer, and the Saturn is 0 degrees in the second house, right? So we could say like, oh, maybe you're still like, imbibing that like in the first house. So I just like want to say like that's like not a thing, right? So it's like 80 miles away, but 80 miles is not 10 miles,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I will say that. But yeah, Mercury and Jupiter, so Mercury descendant, Jupiter MC are both crossing here. So this is the location in which this latitude of that Paran is formed. I've spent some time on it. The place I'm staying, it's 5 miles away. I've been somewhere nearby that was 1 mile away, which was all this insane stuff happened at this really like specific address. It was really interesting. But yeah, I'm just feeling like this, like people want to help me. I don't want to hide anymore. Yeah, like things are just kind of falling in my lap. I don't know.
Wow.
It's I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like what a difference like, a couple of degrees makes, really. I think
Yeah.
it's like 3 degrees, but yeah. Um
Is it also
yeah.
timing as well? What's going on timing for you?
Timing, yeah. So I like specifically chose this location and this time, not only because I actually have had experience being here before on a long-term basis, so I had some idea of what might still be here for me, but I wanted to be in a place where I could best take advantage of Jupiter in Cancer, right? So yeah,
Yes.
I'm a Cancer rising here, so that's going to be hitting, when that I'm like interested also to see when like the Jupiter squaring my Jupiter MC and the yeah,
Ooh.
like what that going to be like. Also, this place just like always just felt like home to me.
Wow.
Like I didn't grow up here. I have like an uncle that moved out here when I was like younger, but I didn't really like, spend a lot of time here. I just like always knew I was always drawn here, right? We talk
Wow.
about that, right? Even when you have something challenging nearby, like how many
Yeah.
times have I been in this part of the world? Like 4 or 5 times at this point. And been meaning like living. Um, and then, so I have a moon local space line also going over like
That's
SFO.
that's right. And you have a moon local space, yeah, right through San Francisco.
Yeah, but it's like really close to or like over the airport basically. So
Oh
I
my
would
gosh.
get super like emotional. Like I'm a double Capricorn. I'm not like crying that much, you know? So that I would always get super emotional, like coming in, leaving. When I used to leave, I would get like homesick immediately. And then, so we talk a lot in the courses about the directionality of these lines, not like an influence of distance. But I
Mhm.
still say it's interesting to zoom out and see where your local space lines are and just like the little corners of the world that you're being dragged to,
Yeah,
like literally pulled to. So yeah, I always talk about it like it's like a compass in my readings, but yeah, with clients. But
it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, your local space lines, not a lot of people use them, but I find using both astrocartography and local space is just so great for getting more specific places that are
Hmm.
coming to, places that you're drawn to. Now that I'm living in France and I've been here for a while, I now also add the local space to my where I am now. And just I
Okay.
note like if someone reaches out to me or if I get a podcast interview and I notice that that person is based in a location where the sun local space line is going through from where I'm living, it's just like, wow, that energy is coming toward me in France where I'm living. And it's almost like, I always like to use local space, especially for contacts, like connecting with people, reaching
Hmm.
out to people that live on certain local space lines. It's just a really cool way to use remote activation, even if you don't live there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Hmm.
Wow. So Cancer rising, Jupiter coming through, angular, squaring the Jupiter MC. So you're going to have that Jupiter transit happen on the map with the cyclocartography, which is so cool. I was so
Yeah.
excited for you. What an exciting year.
Yeah, I'm excited. It just feels like, everything is gonna be different. I mean, it already is. I can
Yeah.
already sort of feel that. But
Yeah. And there's something about, I've been thinking a lot about this lately about how the intuition or your inner voice can almost sense transits like right before they
mm,
happen.
yeah,
Like, for instance, Uranus hasn't entered Gemini yet. We're still, what, 6 days away. But I can already intuitively pick up on themes that will be opening up. But technically you wait until the transit.
sure,
It's
yeah.
like the door opens and then the transit arrives and it's like, there it is, exclamation point. This is kind of a foreshadowing of what we're going to see for the coming years. But I don't know if you've noticed that too, where it's like your intuition can kind of feel things like a week or two out. Do you?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to say because I feel like I'm looking at my chart and timing like every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't dipped into the ZR in a while.
Yeah.
I should do that. I do something that was just like interesting like outside of this is I had a big like pretty like emotionally like traumatic like event that's and I know the date. So it was June 26, 2015. This is a few months within me being in LA, and I feel from that there was all the unraveling and all like the different areas of life. And when I just left LA, it was June 26th. So I think that was huge. There was
Wow.
there was a loose, yeah, there was an LB, like a loosening of the bond on a level 4. I think
Wow.
on the day I left too. So yeah, I do know that, yeah, I do notice things like that. I pay a lot of attention just to like, yeah, the ingresses. I'm usually like really excited about and
Yeah.
mhm.
So Zial releasing is one of your favorite techniques. I know. There is something really powerful about ZR, and I don't usually track it in my own life, but I
Mhm.
just note like when something important happens, I'll then go into my ZR and be like, okay, what's happening? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
usually like
Yeah.
a loosening of the bond, or
Hmm.
like if I have a really good month, but like
Yeah.
the transits don't look good. Like anytime Mars goes through my 10th, it's a hard work month or so.
Okay. Yeah.
But when it's a positive ZR period, it's like that tends to, I find ZR tends to really show like the flavor or the energy of the moment.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then yeah, I mean, not everyone gets so lucky, but yeah, like I feel like okay, maybe I've got this like harder natal chart, but I've got like Venus in Sag, and then I've got Jupiter in Aries. So I feel like I can kind of have these like back to back
Yeah.
like swaths of time that can be more supportive too.
I
So
love that. Oh,
mhm.
cool. So with your astrocartography work, what
Yeah.
is kind of one of the things that you love most of all the techniques, local space, parents, relocation charts, timing with maps? What's something that you love the most? What's your favorite thing to talk about in your readings?
I think my favorite is just to like I probably have a propensity to connect with more people that maybe like weathering something difficult, right? So I'm not necessarily because it doesn't always like show up in this way, but I am really like passionate about how can we make like a difficult like situation better. So within everything you just mentioned, it's really like working with our tool of distance, right? So everything is about like proximity, and how we can kind of, yeah, like kick something up or like ease off from something. So really just like all like the sort of like secondary and tertiary lines that we use. Obviously, the params, the local space, to some degree, aspect lines. I don't use midpoints in every reading. I tend to like to use those. You occasionally will get that client, they're like, oh, I'm moving like 40 miles away, right? So then you really have, I just talk about it with my clients like I'm building a recipe and this is like the palette and we're just like doing all the things to like make it as supportive as possible. But I think really just like the integration of like, yeah, the business
Yeah.
astrology for me with the relocation is one of my favorite
Oh,
things.
so cool. You're
Yeah.
one of my favorite people in the certification in my course because not just because you're so thorough and you're so good at like going deep and reading charts, but your heart, your ability to connect with people, to want to help people solve problems and to that big heartedness that you have. I really respect you and am so grateful that you're just on my team of readers and supporting so many people in relocation and just in their life in general. I feel like as astrologers, I wouldn't say we're therapists, but in a lot of ways we're healers. We're here to
Mhm.
help be of service to others, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I really appreciate that. And I can't believe that you even saw that like in me, given that I had this massive like Saturnian, dark cloud over me
Oh
for
no.
so long. It was really hard for me to work with, but it was also really hard to spot it for several years. I will say because I do have a challenging chart and I'm just kind of like used to weathering, some of these more difficult circumstances, right? So I didn't notice it maybe the way that maybe other people might have. And then, the thing that really struck me at some point, I was made aware of like the like chronology with like the Uranus opposition and the Saturn opposition. Like I left New York to go to this really difficult area when I was 39. And depending who you talk to, it could be like 39, 41, like it's somewhere in there. And then I was there when it was like the height of it starting to get very difficult was around 44, which is near the Saturn, 44, 45. That's the Saturn opposition too. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it was just everything. And I used to ask myself that question years ago, like, what is wrong with me? What is happening to me? Why is this happening? Like all that, not helpful kind of dialogue. And
Yes.
it's like actually going through that is what led me to this in the first place. And it is very much the only reason that we're talking and that I do this I give readings to people now. So
Wow.
yeah.
What advice would you give maybe to someone who's listening who has a harder chart or who is in a location that is challenging for them?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to them?
Well, I mean, I kind of went through some of that for a long time, and I was in a position where there weren't a lot of financial resources, and I couldn't actually change the situation, like literally and physically. So, we know it's not the most important thing in the interpretation of charts and maps, but I was like, can I just like get to a supportive aspect line? So I would just try to get closer to like I have a Venus trine aspect line in Southern California. And I would just I would or there's a moon one too. I think that's supportive. And they were like kind of like out like near like the desert, like Palm Springs and Joshua Tree. And I don't drive. So, I would take like the train out to Palm Springs, or I would go to like Claremont, which people that haven't been to that part of Southern California, it's like where Pomona College is. So like I just love, as we can see here, I'm like really drawn here too. But like I love being in these areas that are like just surrounded by like philosophy and like education and want to be immersed in that. It's literally like someone like just supplanted a like Ivy League college from the East Coast into like Southern California. There's a little train you can take, like a commuter train you can take from LA. So I would just go and I would like spend time there. And even if you can't get to the line, there's like different like ways to like work with like the remote activation piece. And for me, early on when I was learning about this, and it might not have been the right approach, but it's not for me, it's not just about like okay, I'm gonna like connect with more people that are on this line in this place, but like what does the like energetics of this archetype like represent, or like getting into like the mythology, like really into like Greek mythology? Because yeah, all of this, the first time I opened like Astro Click Travel and like saw that like Venus ascendant line, like going through the Cyclades Islands near Turkey. I love Turkey when I used to live in Austria during my Saturn return. I loved it
Wow.
there, and it was complete opposite of living in like Vienna. So I did like get to feel some of that. Um, yeah, like looking into the culture and like the mythology and like how do you start like bringing that into your life? Something I used to do. I like going on Etsy because you can filter by where the makers are, and then you can get physical objects made from those places and then put them in your home.
That is brilliant.
I know
Oh my gosh.
it's very untapped, but yeah, it's very simple. So just get like some candles from like that were made in Athens or something and have
Yeah.
them in my, yeah.
I think it was in our last directory call. For those listening, we have a directory of readers, fashion cartographers, and we meet every quarter. And I think someone mentioned that they get their coffee imported or like they get their coffee from a certain country. And so I started doing that. And I've
Mm,
noticed because there's all these different types of coffee from around the world, right? My favorite type of coffee is from Brazil. And my in
yeah.
Brazil, I have my Jupiter line going right through there. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's really cool.
I love that example and the example of someone like literally like with their like internet connectivity, like using like the VPN. That was genius.
Yes. It's brilliant. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is so good. Set your VPN to the countries and cities in the world where you have your beautifully placed planetary lines. Oh my God, that's brilliant. I need to start doing that. I totally forgot about that. I think Paulina was the one who mentioned that.
Yeah. It was Paulina. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, tell us, so you're in the certification or you've graduated the certification program. In fact,
Graduated.
you now
Yeah.
help me with my
Hmm.
students because I have so many students that
Yeah.
are passing their evidence portfolios, their test assessments, and we're
Hmm.
actually coming up to the end of that now, and we're getting ready for round two of the live
Yes.
certification program. I'm so excited for it. Tell us about your journey being in the certification. Did you love it? Was there anything specific that really supported you in your journey of learning locational astrology?
I will say that like my main impetus for like really joining was gonna be like literally the access to the directory. I'm someone that has been like uncomfortable with like social media and things, and that has totally changed now because that's like, the Saturn and the Leo and the first, it's like the extinguishing your light, literally. Like that's how I will always describe it to people. Um, that is not there anymore. That is like the opposite there, right? It's very angular now, and it's very seen now. So that is going to be changing. However, yeah, so I like this like idea of having this other like, source of, yeah, referrals that and you've been like also like, yeah, curating your S working on your SEO for years. So yeah, I thought there could be a lot of opportunity there. And yeah, like really I was there for the business modules. That was like the main thing. There was some overlap with some of the like the like instructional, yeah, modules that I, yeah, had gotten some of that in the locational, what was called the locational astrology course. So it's now the self-paced relocation astrology course. And honestly, that went so well that I mean, I could have just like still been giving, readings and been totally comfortable with it, but I don't know, like my Capricorn and Virgo likes to make things official and likes to collect degrees and things like that. So like I was like, I want to be certified. Um, but yeah, that was like sort of like the main reason why I did that. I think like one of the bigger things, like one of the early business modules where you're talking about like, spending like the same amount of time like prepping for a reading as you do when you give it. Like I have a tendency to overgive, and especially in this area of life, because it's literally like the main thing I'm passionate about right now, or and have been, and probably will continue to be forever. Um, but yeah, I would like because because like my experience working with clients in the past was with like one-to-ones with design clients, right? And yours always like giving like some sort of visual presentation, right? And over the last few years working for myself way before the pandemic, just like used to that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I'll design something beautiful because I was like a little like there was that little like imposter syndrome at the beginning. So I'm like, oh, if
Yeah.
I just forget anything, then like I have this. But I was literally like spending at one point sometimes between 12 and 16 hours like preparing for that. And then like yeah, and you gotta kind of just think about
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, your business overall. Yeah, and
Exactly.
your
And your
energy. Yeah,
time and your
yeah,
energy.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I've met with some astrologers who do this for a business and they've told me they've gotten burnt out and quit because they do
Oh,
so much prep. And then when I tell them you shouldn't be spending more than the time of the reading to prepare for, the
mhm,
session. Um, and yeah, no, there's so many good business modules in the certification program, like how to like step by step how to find places for people and like how I begin, how I go deeper. And then also it's the only program officially that has live classes because
mhm,
we used to, when you joined in 2023, we had live
yeah.
classes. And then I wanted to do like a test assessment. And it was actually because one of our students recommended that there was some sort of test or proficiency. And then I had some other people reach out and say the same thing. And so I was like, okay, I feel like this is a sign.
Hmm.
Maybe I should make a test and just make it a full blown, like, a certification because people want to know if they're doing it right. There's
Yeah.
so many courses where you give the material and then people learn it on their own. It's self-paced. But like knowing what you're doing, that you're making correct choices with the maps, the techniques, because it's such a technical field.
Yeah.
Having someone who's been doing this and knows what they're talking about look over your evidence portfolios, what you've written out,
Hmm.
seeing your score, which ones you've gotten correct or not. I just find it's really helpful for those that are new to this
Hmm.
and just like unsure if they're doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Hmm.
Yeah. And while the directory is closing, so for any of you guys that are listening that are thinking about joining the certification as it's open right now, um, while the directory is closed, there's still live classes. And we're actually going to be having 8 live classes, 3 in the fall, 2 in the winter, and then 3 in the spring to like wrap up the year for the second round. So amazing. Would you, who would you say the certification is for? If you could recommend to anyone who's on the fence or thinking about joining, who would you say this is for? What kind of person is this program for, would you think?
Mm, I think this is great. And I'm kind of thinking, and I'm in the beginning stages of developing a program around this, but like if you're like someone that's like working, let's say with like digital nomads, right? Because like so often with like the astrocartography, I'm sure we've talked about this before. Um, yeah, I mean, you might have people that are like coming back to you, that are like loyal clients, but it's usually, most people aren't coming for travel. Like most people are coming for, yeah, like the big move. Where is best? Where am I gonna find this? Where can I sort of like set down these routes? And so I was starting to think about like how can I continue to work with these with people time and time again. So yeah, that's just like an aside. So I think like that's like a good community because that is one that's like coming like sort of time and time again. So I think that's something to be mind actually, like people that might want this access to this work over, yeah, or just, yeah, like I hear stories of, yeah, people that are born and have lived in a place their whole life that's like really challenging. And my experience, the people that I want to help that have lived through that, right? Like the power of astrocartography for me is that we get to have agency like over the experience that like we want to have.
Yeah.
Right. So things aren't happening, to us. Like we get to have a say. We get to sort of like
Yes.
co-create there. Yeah. I think that, and yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're like, some of us that, you got like your nodes and your travel houses, or just like that's always sort of been a thing, or you have this like strong, just visceral like connection to a place, or yeah, maybe yeah, maybe you've got, some stelliums and, Jupiter world signs, like you're very psychic, like you feel like that sensitivity to place. Mhm.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah. Because it's true. I feel like those who are really intuitive, they pick up on the energies of places immediately when they're
Yeah.
playing lands, even in mid-flight, or even just like going to the same place, the same city, they're always drawn to go back. It's like, why is that?
Hmm.
People who are really sensitive and curious about energies, it's incredible what those lines can show you, and also the relocation charts can show you. Thank you so
Hmm.
much for coming on the show. Where can people find you? How can people work with you?
I think by the time this episode launches, I'm gonna have my new website up. So you can find me at mapyourmagic.world, which is my new domain name, which I love.
I'm like
Uh,
excited I'm hitting the table.
yeah, I might be coming back to Instagram. Haven't decided yet, but for now, I'm on Substack at Map Your Magic. All right.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, your name of your business is fantastic. I love it.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, I took this podcast course. It's like all about like SEO and actually like even how to like name your podcast so people can find you, and then that just ended up being the business name. So,
Oh,
yeah.
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Amanda.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It was so great to connect with you.